Hey everyone, welcome back to Branded. So, if you're new here, we don't talk about perfectly curated posts. If you've been around for a while, you know that already. We talk about the messy, real work of building a business. And today I want to talk about what happens when you don't feel really proud of your brand. So there's always that moment when, let's say you're at brunch, right? Someone's going to ask you, or you're at a networking event, right? Inevitably, someone's going to be asking you, so what do you do? But what happens on the other side of that question? Are you lighting up and like talking about it till the end of time? And people are like, okay, we get it. Or are you like shrinking and changing the subject immediately? That's what I want to talk about today. You could give that short, vague answer of like, oh, I like help women with their wellness and then like change the subject. You could do that. And a lot of us do. Honestly, I did for a long time as well. But what I realize now is when that moment comes and someone's like, hey, so what do you do for work? And if I am not super freaking lit up about it, then that's a really good opportunity for me to do some work on my business. For me to say, like, okay, why am I not super fucking stoked to talk about this? What is misaligned and making me feel a little uncomfortable and not as excited as I should be to tell people about my business? Because when like your brand's identity doesn't truly match the brilliance that you're bringing to your clients, there's that disconnect, there's that misalignment. And it's really easy to feel not proud of it. And, today's episode title is Building a Brand You're Not Embarrassed to Talk About at Brunch. Because no matter how much you love your brand and your business, if you're not really, really stoked to talk about it when someone asks, hey, what do you do? Then there's something misaligned there. And that's okay, right? It's always opportunity. And if you're new to this podcast, you understand that that's like a thread that is woven through every episode. There's nothing wrong with you or your brand or your business if something isn't operating the way you expected it to. That's just opportunity. So if you're finding yourself just sort of cringing a little bit every time you try to describe what it is that you do, it's not because you have a bad business. It's most likely because your brand it just doesn't feel like you. Maybe it used to and it doesn't anymore. Maybe it never has, right? You have to be the one to determine that for yourself. So, this misalignment, this is how you can kind of gauge whether this is happening to you right now. Because this misalignment will show up in a couple different ways. It's not only going to show up when someone says, hey, what do you do? And you sort of shrink away a little bit. It'll show up in other areas of your business as well, such as, you avoid telling people about your offers. So you might say, oh, I help women with their wellness. And then you change the subject and you don't tell them that you have an incredible offer that helps them lock in with their goals and get them done, right? You just brush it off. Maybe you're downplaying your expertise in it because you just don't feel like you can bring to the table what you really want to be promising to people. And so you find yourself just downplaying it entirely. Or maybe you're sort of like secretly wishing that someone else would just write all your social media posts for you, your emails, your website. Like you don't want to put any of yourself into your work because you just don't confidently feel good about it. You don't love it. It doesn't feel aligned. So that misalignment shows up in a couple different ways in your business. And when your brand is on the other side of that and feels super aligned, guess what? You're talking about it effortlessly. You're introducing your business like it's your best fucking friend. You know, like you're going up to strangers going, oh my God, have you heard? Have you seen? Have you met? Right? Like it's your best friend because you love it and you stand behind it so wholeheartedly that You're not ashamed to talk about it at brunch. You're hoping someone asks you about it, not so you can talk about yourself, but because you're just that excited to share what it is that you do and how you help people. So here's what this might look like. And I feel like these sort of real life examples are really helpful because there is so much noise out there and you can spot this. So whether it's happening in your own business or not, you might be able to spot this in someone else's business. Maybe it's your best friend. Maybe it's someone you haven't talked to in ages, but you see it and this is a moment that you guys can reconnect. Whatever, right? But this is what this could look like. Let's say you're a coach, you're brilliant at what you do. You have clients that absolutely adore you. But whenever someone asks, hey, what do? You completely freeze up. You say something like, oh, I do website design. Let's use myself, for example, right? Oh, I do website design. And then I like quickly pivot the conversation and I say nothing else. Why are you feeling this way? Why would you feel this way? Well, your branding is not reflecting your expertise. Perhaps your website is super outdated. How long ago was it put together, right? What does it say on that site? Is it even relevant anymore? Your messaging is super fuzzy because it's just full of all of these like fluff buzzwords that nobody gives a shit about. Yeah, use an adjective here and there for sure. You want to have a little sizzle in your messaging, but don't fill it with all this fluff and give absolutely no substance. Your messaging has to have substance. People need to be able to read it and understand, yeah, this is for me. This is what I've been looking for. Maybe deep down, you actually don't want people to see your work. Ah, yikes, right? That's what this can look like in real life. So maybe your first thought is, okay, maybe I need to do a brand refresh. You like pull your story and your messaging all together and like get it really refined. And you have this sort of one core message that then you just blanket everywhere. That is a fabulous way of giving your brand a little bit of like a breath of fresh air. Maybe you build a brand identity that actually starts to feel like you right now. Because if your website was built 5 years ago, that's not you right now. I guarantee your brand and your business are not the same as they were 5 years ago, especially if you're evolving and pivoting as needed, which, let's be real, every business owner has to evolve and pivot like daily. So your website is most likely outdated if it was made 5 years ago. You got to have little refreshers, right? Every so often. Maybe your offers need to get like clarified and refined a little bit. These are a couple ways that you can quickly get yourself back into alignment. Because maybe the offer you had 2 years ago, that's like for a 12-month coaching program, maybe that's not sustainable for you right now. Maybe you don't have room in your life to offer something like that. Why is it out there? And if you physically don't have the space for it, I don't want to get too like woo-woo on you, but it is true. If you don't have space in your life, physical, mental, emotional space in your life for something, it's not happening. You have to create the space for that. So if your offers aren't selling, ask yourself why. Yes, it could be the outdated branding and the outdated website. Yes, it could be some fuzzy messaging. It could just straight up be that the offer isn't aligned with you anymore. Maybe the timeline of the offer needs to change. Maybe what you have in that offer needs to change. Pull some things out, add some things in. Creating a little bit of that fresh energy into your brand can get you really fucking excited and talking about it again. So the next time you're at brunch and someone asks you, hey, what do? You'll end up leaning in and you say it like you fucking mean it because you're so excited. When I first started Social Jane Media, I did not, I did not like talking about it. Oh my God, I would get like the sweats. It was so nerve wracking because I wasn't fully bought in myself. I wasn't trusting of the expertise that I had, what expertise I did feel like I had. I wasn't confidently conveying because my brand was sort of like, there was this, it just felt a little disjointed, I guess is the best way to say it. And I would mumble something vague like, oh, I do design work. Like I design stuff. I guess I'm good at that. And I just sort of brush it off. And it wasn't till I actually sat down and did the work of clarifying, what do I actually want to be doing? What am I actually good at and that I enjoy doing? And it wasn't until I really sat down and outlined that for myself that I could confidently turn around and be like, yes, social Jane Media is your place for website design, email marketing, and backend systems, period. I'm great at it. I have clients that can prove to you that I'm great at it because they continue to send me referrals, and I am so very grateful. But I did not have that confidence when I first started this business. For one, I didn't have the experience to back it up. And I'm not saying that you need experience in order to have the confidence, but confidence comes from action. So the more action I took, messy or not, the better I got at things, the more my expertise was amplified, right? So the difference in me being really confident about my business and when someone says, hey, well, what do you do? It wasn't just me changing the words that I say. Because I'll be honest, in the beginning, I would sit and I would do a lot of journaling of, okay, what's my elevator pitch, right? What's the thing I want to say? And I would try to memorize it. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work because when you're saying it, it sounds like a memorized elevator pitch. And that doesn't land, right? You don't feel great saying it. The people hearing it are like, okay, cool. Guess she's new at this because that's what it sounds like. And we all start somewhere. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it is work that helps you work through what you want to really be known for. But action's where it's at. You have to get out there and be taking on clients. Shit, if you're brand new, do something for free. Get your own confidence and expertise dialed in. Do something for a cost where you're like, oh, you know what? I'm going to give this person a little bit of a discount. I know my expertise is there. You don't have to discount your work if you don't want to, but there's a place, like a time and a place to start honing your craft. And sometimes you do that without any applause, right? You do that simply because you want to be building this thing. You want to be building this business. So the difference wasn't just in my words, it was how I felt about my brand because it finally started to sound like me. It actually was reflecting the work that I did want to do. I'll give you a little example here. Logos. I'm good at them. I don't necessarily love doing them. There's something about a logo that can be so intricate and so minute, and the revisions just till the end of time that can happen with a logo. And there's so much identity built into this one thing where what I've come to recognize is the simpler, the better. Because where your brand is really going to hit home for people is in the full blown experience. And that's what I love to create. I love to create that full blown experience for someone where they've got this beautiful website that actually functions. It's a reflection of their business. It has all the right messaging that they're looking for. One little logo can't do that, but it's a really good start. So that's work that I don't say, oh, I'm your logo girl, because I don't love making logos, but I inevitably make them because it's part of the brand. But I'm not going to say, oh, this is the thing that I do and that this is the thing I'm an expert at because I don't love to do it. So if there's a part of your business that you really don't love to do, you don't have to advertise it. You can talk about all of the other elements that you really love to do. That's when your brand starts to feel really cohesive and you get really excited to talk about it. So if you remember just one thing from today's episode, remember this. If you're embarrassed to talk about your business, It's okay because that's feedback. That's feedback for you to know that that's a sign that your brand identity and your messaging aren't quite matched up yet. And they're kind of off kilter from like your values, maybe the vibe you're looking for, the vision that you have. So if your brand identity and your messaging aren't reflective of that vision you have for your business, of that vibe you're really going for, and of the values that you're holding dear to yourself, then there's some work to be done. And that's feedback, right? So always a learning opportunity. Last week, we were talking about the confidence gap and why like brilliant founders stay small. This is relatively similar. This will keep you playing small. If you're not excited to talk about your business, you have got to find a way of closing that gap. And doing really simple work like this, where you just kind of reflect into your business and you get really honest with yourself without being judgmental about it, that's when you start to align everything. Instead of some rehearsed perfect elevator pitch, right? You're simply sharing who you are and what you do in a way that feels really, really authentic and organic. Here's a little 5-minute exercise. This is something that if you've been feeling a little stuck in your business, you've not been feeling super excited to talk about it, or maybe you've got this like sense of, oh, I just don't know what's next for me kind of thing. This is a really fabulous little exercise that you can do. Just grab a notebook, set a 5-minute timer, pen and paper, right? That's all you need. Use your phone. It doesn't matter. Whatever kind of way you like to learn. But this is how you can get a little closer to that brand alignment right now. Write down the first 3 words that come to mind when, like, how do you want people to describe your brand to other people? What's those first 3 words? Is it something like inspired, grounded, energized, thoughtful, included, right? Like, what are these words? What are these feelings that you want people to feel when they come across your brand? 3 words, that's it, right? Jot down 3 phrases you'd love someone to say about you after working with you. Because let's be honest, we all want referrals, right? That is good business. To be in the business of referrals is really good business because it means that you've got this continuous Rolodex happening, right? And you're not constantly having to go do lead generation. So how do you want people to, let's say someone is at, right? Someone's at brunch. Maybe you haven't showed up yet. You got invited. It's a client of yours and it's like 2 other ladies. You're not there yet. You're still valet parking, whatever. It's taking a minute. And your client's at the table already going, okay, ladies, I cannot wait for you to meet Sarah. She does XYZ, blah, blah, blah. Like, what are these phrases that people are saying to their friends, to the people they're going to refer to you? Because this is going to give you some really good insight into what you're already doing and what you aspire to be doing. And you might find that there's a little bit of a gap there. And that's where that misalignment might be happening. And thirdly, go take a look at your website. If you don't have a website yet, take a look at your social channels or wherever it is that you expect people to find you, where you send people when they first encounter you. Go take a look at your website or your social channels, your Instagram bio, right? Whatever. How do you describe your business out loud? What is the messaging? Do the words and the phrases come through with clarity? Or is it just full of buzzwords and fluffy stuff that tells somebody nothing? It's hard to be harsh about it, but that happens. I was doing that for a little while too, mostly because I hadn't found that clarity yet of who I really wanted to be in my business, what I really wanted to offer to people. So instead, I just grabbed all these fluffy words and was like, boop, here we go. That sounds great. But what ends up happening is it ends up just being some fluffy little billboard that like tells people absolutely nothing about you. So go take a look at your social channels or your website. Does that messaging and phrasing actually tell people what you do? Jot down some phrases of what you would want people to say about you if they were referring you to somebody. And what are 3 words that could describe your business? That little 5-minute exercise is going to give you some insight into where your brand currently is and where it aspires to be. Like I mentioned before, there is going to be that gap. It's inevitable because as we evolve and we pivot, there's always going to be a little bit of that gap. The trick is recognizing the gap and closing it, right? That's the trick. So the next time you're at brunch and someone asks what you do, imagine how good it would feel to answer with like super clear clarity, answer with ease, right? You don't even have to think about it twice. It just rolls off the tongue. And of course, like a little bit of excitement. Doesn't that feel really, really good? Because honestly, that's the goal. Building a brand that you're not embarrassed to talk about and one that feels like you, that's the freaking goal. You do not want to be embarrassed to share your website with people. You do not want to be embarrassed to send people to your Instagram. That is a place of business for you. And if you're using your social channels for your business, that is free advertising. So lock it in, get it refined, treat it as advertising for your business, not just some social channel platform where noise goes to die. Like, use it. If today's episode hit home for you, do the 5-minute exercise. Like, give it a shot. See what happens. See what kind of things pour out of you. Pick those 3 words to describe your business. Jot down some phrases of what you really hope people are saying about you and your business when they refer you to people, and start noticing where your brand is or isn't, reflecting those answers, right? If you're saying, okay, the 3 words I want for my business are exciting and inspiring and playful, but then I go to your website and it feels very like elegant and demure and um, like a quiet presence. Those are very different things. Those are great things, but they're very different things. So if you're wanting your business to be described one way, but it's being presented in another, that's the disconnect, right? I really appreciate you guys popping onto these weekly episodes. I hope that you're finding some value in them because your brand should never be the thing that's holding you back. It should always be helping you launch forward and encouraging you to show the fuck up. And hopefully that's what today's episode did for you. I'll see you next week in a brand new one. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to Branded, the podcast. Please rate and review. And for more information, visit socialjanemedia.com. I'll see you soon.